So let's talk about Quito. What's unique about Quito and Ecuador is, obviously, as the name suggests, that it's located smack on the middle of the equator, which means that the sun rises at 6 in the morning, it sets at 6 in the evening the entire year. You have no seasons. The entire year you have the perfect living conditions for not only human beings, but also plant life, which means that it is the place on planet Earth where you have the greatest diversity of plant species per square mile, more than any other place in the entire world. Quito is located in the Quito Valley, surrounded by volcanoes on all sides, so you have like spectacular views. In the north part of Quito, we have La Carolina Park, which is like sort of the central park. It's a former lake that has dried out and become a green reservoir. And here on the east side, with spectacular views of the sunset setting over the volcanoes and the park itself, we have the possibility to build what will be the tallest building in all of Quito. It used to be that the airplanes were landing in the airport inside Quito, which would cut the maximum height of the buildings down to 16 floors. Now that the airport has moved away, we can actually build twice that. So we can build the tallest building in Quito, where the penthouse will be almost 3 kilometers above sea level. We had this idea that it might actually be not just the tallest building in Quito, but the tallest building in the world, because Quito is probably one of the tallest capitals. So how to inhabit this unique site? So of course we have the park on one side. We have this sort of L-shaped site that connects from the park all the way to Finlandia Road on the other side. It sort of turns the corner in a slightly strange way. And we thought, what would be the most sort of amazing way to inhabit the sky above the roofs of Quito? And we came up with this idea of imagining a series of buildings within the building. And as the building turns, so does these buildings. So these sort of series of rooms, always optimized to capture the most ideal orientation for views and for sun, creates a series of staggered elements. Also, one thing that we've taken from Scandinavia is, in the Americas, quite often you have single-sided homes. Here we made sure that all of the homes actually have views to primarily the north and the south, which means that you can actually cross-ventilate. You actually have sun and views in both directions. Of course, for this part you have the sunset as well as the sunrise. And then instead of having like one large floor plate, each part of the building actually steps gently so that one rests on the other. So that means when you look at the section, you basically have the ground, then you have sort of a series of shaded spaces underneath where you have the entrances into the buildings. People can sort of hang out. You have small sort of audience-oriented retail, like cafes, small shops, etc. So people can actually sort of enjoy the life under the building and connect from the park to the street. And then all the way at the top, in a similar way, you have a cascading series of stepping terraces where you're going to have like a small pool and places for the inhabitants to hang out and enjoy the spectacular 360-degree panorama of the surrounding city. And that finally brings us to the individual homes. So let's say each home is like one of these nice large rooms, because the buildings are always rotated. You end up having these very nice large terraces. And we're thinking maybe we could celebrate this sort of incredible diversity of plant life, so that each terrace actually has a tree, a different species of trees growing. The way that we make it is actually that we create this unique wall, a hollow wall inside each room that actually has space enough for the roots of a tree to grow. And that actually means that the entire facade of the building becomes almost like a vertical display of the biodiversity of Quito. We also imagine that as the trees grow and the roots start filling up the planters, after 5 years, you can actually replant the tree. So the entire building becomes a nursery for different species and can start actually help populating another part of the city to become park. So in a way, like the park then climbs to become a building and eventually will help repopulate a park in the future. So that means that if you're living inside this building, not only do you have the views of the tallest apartment in the entire city, the sun setting over the park, views over the roofscapes, but you also have the nature that is unique to the diversity of this particular neighborhood. And of course, inside your living room, you will have this sort of interesting evidence of almost like a concrete sculpture inside your living room, which is actually the root zone of the vertical garden of the person living upstairs, as well as you have the view of your own little garden and the view of the city and the volcanoes. So I think in many simple ways, and you can see basically the building ends up looking a bit like this, obviously at a very small scale, but essentially rather than having a single sort of vertical wall, instead you have a three-dimensional, it's going to be inhabited with many different shades of green. Also, as the weather is actually nice 365 days a year, you'll also have different seasons where different plants are going to blossom at different times. So that also means that the entire facade is actually going to change color throughout the year. And essentially, if you are a resident of this building, it's not like you're like one of the windows in this wall of sameness. You can actually identify this is my building within the building. That the entire tower is almost like a vertical sort of rounded stack of one home on top of the other on top of the other. So I think in short, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take all of the qualities of Quito, the sort of enjoyment of living in the most biodiverse place on the planet when you look at plant life, in a city on equator where the season is perfect for human life and plant life throughout the year, and bring that experience into the vertical dimension. So not just like one tower, but like an entire vertical community, and essentially the Carolina Park climbing all the way up to the penthouse.